to be at a meeting like this. And let's start and set the framework for that by talking about the lifespan of a bridge, since this is bridge preservation. Everything that's out there, every bridge that we have, somebody at some point conceived the need. In a transportation network, we need a route to go here. To do that, we're going to align the road there, this place instead of that place after I evaluate it, and that scenario requires a bridge. There is a planning component. And the people that do planning, it's important work, but when they finish, they hand that off to somebody else. There's a group in every DOT that's responsible for the design of that bridge. And what they do is important. And it's not easy. But when they're at the end of that design, they hand it off to somebody else. It then goes to people who build that bridge. Construction is important. It's important they get it right. It is not easy. But at the end of that construction project, all those project people hand that bridge off to somebody else. And they move on to the next project. Then at the end of that chain, that bridge is now in service. And it belongs to people who maintain it, who preserve it. And there is no handing it off. It belongs to that group for the rest of its life. And that is not a small undertaking. And even though those groups that I mentioned before do good work, sometimes either circumstances change or things are overlooked. And how many people here have, in their maintenance roles, in their preservation roles, received a bridge, a road, anything that didn't need some work almost from day one? Preservation is a lifetime of that asset. It is exceedingly important, and it is becoming more so every day. If you're from a state that recently, and there are some states recently that were able to raise their local revenues, I'm from a state that has been unsuccessful in the last several legislative sessions. But if you're from a state, I bet you still do not have enough money to handle all the problems that you face. Preservation will always be a fundamentally important and increasingly important part of what DOTs do. Preservation is a culture, if you will. It is not bridges versus pavement versus anything else. Everything that we have, that we've invested, that goes into the operation of our transportation network must be maintained and preserved. Preservation is protecting that infrastructure investment. There is a moral and ethical obligation that we have asked the public, us being part of that public, to invest billions of dollars into something. It is wrong to let it go to rot. We have an obligation to do that, to make sure those assets are able to function as both that they are intended and as they are needed. And why do I make that distinction? How many bridges do you have that are now in operation way beyond any design life that they were conceived of? We need these things to do more than they were intended for. We routinely have routes that carry way more traffic than they were designed to carry, and there is no expansion of capacity in sight, or at least in the near future. You must make things do what they were intended to do and more, and that is the heart of preservation. Preservation projects are rarely grandiose, large, complex, or attention-grabbing. They tend to be give the appearance of being minor, insignificant, routine, and boring. It's not the things that politicians campaign on, right? It's the kinds of things that is the routine, everyday operations that get very little attention. However, the truth of the matter is this: even if they're not large and sexy and appealing, an effective preservation program is difficult and challenging. Make no mistake about that. It requires discipline, focus, attention to detail, commitment, tenacity, problem solving, and passion. The states and the people that are most effective at preservation have those characteristics.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.